Call the meeting to order, the August 27, 2019 Common Council meeting. Could we have the roll, please?
Odekirk. Here. Hanson.
Present?
Sedlacek.
Here.
Gilson.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Fernsler.
Here.
Nelson.
Here. Okay, can we stand for the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item is approval of the consent agenda.
So move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will have a roll call on that for vote.
Nelson.
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Odekirk.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Gilson.
Yes.
Okay, it's approved. Next, we have the audience portion, and the audience is encouraged to make comments and come to the council meeting to speak. You have a 3-minute area time limit to do on that. You needed to sign in on it. First on that, we have Administrator Jurgis.
Sure. I just wanted to draw to the public's attention as well as to the council. I just handed this out a minute ago. We are having a recycling event again on October 3rd, 2019 at the Valley Road DPW garage. That is the electronic kind of waste recycling event that we have. Greg, who is our WPPI Energy Services rep, is coordinating that with some assistance from the Public Works staff as well as admin staff at the utilities. Now, this is our second event of the year, and again, this will be advertised on our social media, and I think Greg plans on putting this in the newspaper as well. So I just wanted to draw attention to that event for the Common Council's information.
And this is where again, at what
At the
site?
Valley Garage, DPW Garage on October 3rd, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have on the comments from the audience, Patty Ramponi. Ramponi, okay, if you would please.
My name is Patty Ramponi. Thank you for this opportunity to address the council, city administrator. Thank you very much. I'll read from my statement. This is the first time I've ever used a microphone if it's on, but I think you can hear me. I came here today to address a concern that I share with many others in the city, the case of pesticide use in our parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields. I'm a retired respiratory therapist. I have owned a home here, resided here with my family for 34 years in this well-cared-for city. I love Plymouth. I was shocked to see the signs of pesticide use in the parks this summer when I walked through the parks. I'm referring to those brown dead zones around the trees and the fences. I was informed that Roundup was used in certain areas to keep weeds down, especially around trees, fences, and elsewhere, where lawnmowers couldn't get close to the trees and the fences. I would like to know if Plymouth has a policy for pesticide use. If so, what negates the use of glyphosate at Lone Park or any other parks? Will the weeds cause unacceptable health or safety hazards, or an unacceptable reduction in the intended use of property? I think not. Are there any non-toxic methods to use first to address cosmetic issues in our parks? Or maybe we need to increase our weed tolerance. Roundup has been linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer, study by Mayo Clinic, K.L. Basel, 2007, cited positive association with pesticides exposure to humans, children, and adults. Also, the National Institute of Health released a study in 2017, check their website, that also links Roundup to cancer. Roundup is devastating to young trees, referred to Penn State study, kills unintended plants, and there are many lawsuits, medical claims from employee use, many claims. You can check that on the website too. for our health, the health of our children and grandchildren, and the pets that enjoy our wonderful parks and schools here in Plymouth, I would like to keep a pesticide-free Plymouth. I can be reached anytime to hear what committee has to say to address these concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. As noted, or should be noted, that this is a comment portion only, and we do not respond as alders or council members. So again, we encourage anyone coming forward and express themselves, and thank you, Administrator Jurgis. Next, we'll go on to remove the items from the consent agenda, and we had none removed, so we do not have to deal with that aspect of it. Then we go on to item 6, committee reports and actions. And the Public Works, Utility, and Finance Personnel Committee recommendation from August 13, approval, proposed resolution number 23, resolution applying to the water sewer lateral revolving loan fund pilot program for the city of Plymouth. And Administrator Jurgis, would you address that, please?
Sure, this is a follow-up from the August 13th meeting, and the draft manual was updated based on comments that I received at that committee meeting. And I then drafted a resolution, and I think I can just kind of reference the resolution and read through that a little bit. It says, whereas the city of Plymouth has adopted the lead services infrastructure plan with the adoption of resolution 22 of 2018, whereas the common council has adopted resolution 16 of 2019 declaring official intent to adopt a resolution extending the life of tax incremental district number 4 to benefit affordable housing and improve housing stock through a long-term housing revolving loan fund program. Whereas the city desires to provide 100% financing of private water lateral and private sewer lateral replacements through a low-interest revolving loan program using funds from the defederalized CDBG business RLF program on an interim basis. And whereas the RLF program will provide affordable financing for property owners to replace lead water laterals, leaking or failed water laterals, and non-code compliant or deficient sewer laterals. Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Plymouth that it adopts the water sewer lateral revolving loan fund manual as a pilot program until the long-term housing revolving loan fund program is established. Directs that the city clerk, treasurer, and city administrator reclassify the current funds on hand of the business revolving loan fund program to the water sewer lateral revolving loan fund program as a committed fund. Directs that the program funding becomes available to eligible applicants upon the application being finalized by the city clerk treasurer with input from the city administrator and director of public works. And directs that the city administrator provides a report to the common council on the program prior to the creation of the long-term housing revolving loan fund program from the TID number 4 affordable housing extension.
Okay. Also included in our packet is the draft of the RLF manual. So you can, if you take a look at this particular point, and I'm sure that we probably all looked at this, this is the RLFL draft that goes along with this resolution. So, is there a motion so we can deal with this, or not a motion to deal with this?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 23.
Okay, it's been moved by Alder. Second, okay. It's been moved in second to adapt resolution number 23 of 2019. Is there any discussion? Now, I'm in a different position tonight, obviously, and so I'm going to explain what situation can take place, that as the acting chairperson, not the mayor, I can discuss and I can vote on this. So I want to make you know the difference. I checked with our city attorney to make sure that I was in compliance with that, because I don't want to, I love parliamentary procedure, but I don't want to go out of the realms of what I can do. So, is there any discussion on this?
I guess a big concern I have is when we go out on a project, how do we address getting information to the public that's gonna be effective that year, and when do we get it to them, so that they can make a determination if it's not mandatory to replace lead lines, what their options are. You know, I mean, do we knock on doors 6 months prior to the project? Because we're gonna have to get a number of people on board to get a contractor interested in going out to do, you know, new lines in the homes and that. So how do we address that? I guess my thought is if we're not gonna mandate that this is done, I would really like to know in a year or the next time we go through a project, how many people took advantage of this revolving loan fund to replace their lead lines? You know, if it's a very low percentage and people don't feel informed, I think I'm gonna be back here asking that it be mandated then at some point in the future. So, is there any,
Are you looking for a comment from, do you wanna
Yeah,
comment
I
on
mean,
that, or do you want
Well,
me
I
to?
mean, the earliest, I mean, we have to wait till budget is approved, right, to make sure
Right.
we know which roads we're going through, and, previously, we've had public information meetings in February. We mail, you know, all the mailers go out in February is what we've done, now we can try to do that in January, right after the holidays, to try to get more notification out there as early as possible, but.
I think what we could do is, we could, you know, if the budget's approved in November, that's November 14th, I'm not, 13th, some day like that, going by memory. You know, by late November, I think we could it's an approved budget at that time. I mean, I think we could look at creating a mailing already that November or very early December. I don't think we'd be in a position to have a public informational meeting about the project per se until, you know, we have something to show from an engineering standpoint. Now, this year, we might be a little further along just because the council already authorized Kapoor to start engineering work, and they're doing survey work and so forth, and so we might have information sooner rather than later. So, you know, we could have a meeting in January already. I do know that, you know, if it's on a voluntary basis, we did talk about kind of doing what Manitowoc does and still facilitate quotes and proposals for lateral replacement, so that's still something we want to work on. I think we'll have to talk about setting a hard date as to when we'd want a response back from homeowners, so that if we facilitate quotes or proposals, that we can give the plumbers and the contractors information as to how many would replace theirs and when we would need a bid back by. So, I mean, I think there's some things we can definitely do different in 2020 than what we've done in the past. In the past, you know, we've had the public informational meeting. Just wait a minute here.
$2 fine.
We've had the public informational meeting, but we really haven't had any funding resources per se to really provide funding to the public, so I think that changes things a little bit. We did have the CDBG housing program, that's always been available, but, you know, the problem with that is to meet the low to moderate income standards, sometimes, you know, people find it difficult to get funding through that program based on their individual situations. So I do think there's some things we can change up in 2020. I think the other piece of it is, you know, next year, depending on if we end up doing the Appleton Street project area, there's not gonna be quite as many lead services, and this program is geared toward residential. So there's not gonna be quite as many in 2020, but if we do the Smith, follow up and do the Smith Street project in 2021, there would be a lot more residents, homeowners impacted in 2021. I don't, did you look at it? I mean, ballpark, do we know, like, if we did Appleton, how many residential?
I don't.
I know there's some apartments, right?
Most of them come off of the Prospect.
Yeah. So the Appleton Street project, there's gonna be a handful, but it's nowhere near, you know, the size the last couple of years. But certainly the Smith Street project in 2021, if that timeline ends up holding, there'd be a lot of residents that would be, you know, have an opportunity through this program then.
One thing that Manitowoc, by mandating it, they require the person to communicate with them. So the persons somehow have to communicate with the
Correct.
person, where ours is, where it's set up on it is a voluntary basis, so do we knock on the doors to say, are you gonna do this or not? And I don't think that's something that,
Well, I think we'd have that either way, right? If you mandate or not mandate and people don't get back to us, you'd still have that issue of, you know, trying to communicate. But I think, you know, and under this program, we'd have to set we need to know by this date whether you know,
Well, I guess my concern is I think they need very clear information on what would it cost during construction to get my lead line replaced? What would it cost if I had to do it on my own a year or two later because my house didn't sell or the new buyer demanded that I get rid of that lead line? So they need information that they can make an informed judgment.
Yeah, I mean, the cost difference between, just the lead line now we're speaking
Yeah.
on.
Those-
The lead line, to have it replaced before or during construction, I mean, it's a sidewalk square that we've been taking as part of our contract. But ultimately, the lead line is replaced to the curb stops. I mean, the cost is not that different. It's whether or not you wanna do a partial replacement or a full replacement.
Right.
I mean, the cost, because it's not under I mean, it'd be with a plumber. I mean, the cost savings may be that I won't be able to tell them is doing it with 6 other people with the same plumber. But that cost savings, I can't tell them what that cost savings would be because that's gonna be dependent upon what plumber comes in to do 6 or 8 homes compared to
Yeah.
just one individual home. That's where the cost savings maybe, but that would be on a plumber by plumber basis, and I wouldn't be able to tell them that information.
But I think we could give them some ballpark stuff, you know, I mean, say if there were 6 people on Appleton Street or whatever that had it done during construction, we'd be able to get a rough figure on, maybe it's a per foot basis, but then we should also be able to get an estimate on if you had to dig up your lawn and get down to the stop and, you know, run it into your house, what's that gonna cost? I mean, there's gotta be a scale of difference there. Right?
I mean, I guess, I mean, I'd be talking with plumbers and getting their opinion. I don't know what range they would give me for that, or what percent increase they would give me for that, but that would be, you know, I'd have to call plumbers and just ask them and take their word for it. I wouldn't be able to
Well,
really
yeah, I mean,
have
that's
a-
all we can do, but they need to be, if it's, say, twice as much to do it on their own 5 years later, they should know that. And be willing to take advantage of this revolving loan fund at this time and at a cheaper cost than it would be if they did it on their own. So I just wanna make sure people are informed. And then if they decide not to do it, well, so be it.
Is this program available for people only if they're digging up the street?
Nope. So the program is available, so if someone on a different street has a leaking lateral, this program is open for them to acquire funding through exactly. Yep. So that, you know, the scenario.
For everyone versus the water versus the lateral sewer as well.
Correct. So if someone has a deficient
And-
sewer lateral, that's collapsed or needs to be replaced, the program is open to funding that as well.
Any other
Correct.
comments?
I agree with John on making sure people are well informed, and have all the facts, because I know, I think most people base their decisions on seeing where the money is and how much it's gonna cost, so.
And making direct, you know, information available to them, rather than hoping that they'll see something or.
Well, I was just thinking of adding an amendment to this motion that each person that has a lead line be personally contacted. And we have a record of that contact. So they can't come back and say, well, we didn't know.
Nobody, yeah.
Well, they,
My concern.
well, personally contacted, they would, because we will have a mailing list and we'll contact them that way. But if you're talking about personally contact, go out, like
Knock
somehow
on the door.
knocking on doors at o'clock at night, you know, that would be, or, you know, I guess that would be a different discussion. I mean,
Next level up of Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it's an important issue that they need to take care of.
I mean, one thing too is, what's the telephone device thing?
Our automated call.
Yeah,
Like that.
that the front office uses, trying to think of it. What that device is called. So we do, phone calls where, you plug in numbers and they're gonna get their utility shut off for non-payment, and that's an automatic call that's uploaded. So I mean, we could look at, implementing some kind of call out where if we have their phone numbers, we don't always have phone numbers for every customer, but we could do, some sort of try to automate the phone call out, doing something like that as well.
But are we really talking about more than, say, 30 households that?
I think
Well, are
each
you talking
project
on a
is different.
Are you talking
On
a
a
project,
On a
not,
project.
I'm thinking the 740
Yeah.
lead lines that we have in
No,
the
I'm
city.
talking about on a project.
Yeah.
When you're gonna do a
I mean, like
street,
Smith Street,
Pine
I
Avenue
mean,
was 24.
I mean, yeah, if
Pine Avenue was
Alderman
24
Hanson's was
last year.
24, Reed Street was 56, 60 homes. I mean, that, depending on people's work schedule, could be difficult to get a hold of everyone, very difficult.
I know, but, I
mean, this
I'm gonna
might be
propose
all
an
overtime.
amendment to this motion then that they be personally contacted and that we have a record of those personal contacts.
Owners,
The owners,
that might be difficult too.
Okay.
Owners versus land, I mean, owners
Yes, so
versus
sometimes,
tenants,
so
that's gonna be
sometimes
different
the,
codes.
if they're a rental, the utility bill is in the name of the renter. So then, and the property, owner could be,
It could be out of town,
could be,
Tax roll.
Plymouth 105 LLC. An owner could be on a property. Just so you know.
okay.
So then, that's the owner on the tax bill.
Because I can speak, because I'm just a alderperson, I'm gonna vote against this. I'm going to be proposing at the next month meeting, a resolution is brought up similar to Falls, that it's required of anybody who is not in compliance with the water lateral, according to the GNR, sewer failure for clays. We have a majority of alders that are in favor of this. We have 3 that are not, and the mayor's not. But I guess I would like to have this brought out to say, moving forward, so if this gets passed tonight, that's good. I could see, I love the fact we're gonna give up a money plan for getting loans for the persons. But, and I've contacted just this week, the person who does Sheboygan Falls water lines and sewer, and he said it was approximately $3,000 to do the water or sewer, and $500 more. And again, you can't quote him totally on that, so you're talking about $3,500 because he's got a whole group to do, is my understanding. But they also have the basis there that you can opt out and say, I want Hockey Plumbing to do it. And what by pipe bursting, what they've done too is they have no lawn work, no landscaping to be done, no shrubs to be replaced, those particular things on it, and, watering the lawn. So that's how I'm gonna vote on this resolution, vote no on it. It can be brought up at the next meeting or thereabouts if it's so meant to be, but I guess that's how I'm gonna vote.
Is there any private lateral not in DNR compliance?
Well, I'm not sure what that question means,
Well, he
because,
brought up the-
'cause
the
we're-
lateral not being DNR compliance. Is there any private?
well, I think there's
personal
laterals that,
property?
I think there's laterals that if it was put in today in 2020, they would not be put in as a water lateral, right? So they're existing. That's no different than if someone has, lead paint in their house. They wouldn't buy paint with lead in it and paint their house.
Under
So,
the DNR right
but
now, is
we
there
are-
any lead water not in compliance? That's privately
Well-
owned?
Lead water?
Lead water pipe.
well, we're in compliance with our lead copper testing rule. So the city is not is not
Is there
out of
anything there
compliance.
on a private ladder?
I don't, I don't know how to answer that, cause I mean, I don't,
I've never heard of it, and I
I
can't
mean-
find it when I've looked for it.
I'm not sure what,
So when you bring up the DNR not being in compliance, we're talking about private property.
Well, we were not.
Not the
sorry.
city, not the city up to the valve, we're talking about this being for private property,
So
personally owned.
if I can talk to you about this, then, so you're saying that the DNR says it's not good to have lead under the street, but it's okay to have lead to the home?
Have they ordered any private person to change their water pipe? Ever,
Not sure what the state's.
no,
doing.
the answer would be no
Oh,
on that.
okay.
period.
Yeah.
Cause it's
I
privately
mean, I think there,
owned.
I think
It's
there's
owned
a,
by the person that pays on the mortgage, pays the taxes, and pays for the bills of the house. The person who works to own that private property, not for you to tell them what to do.
We bought a house in
Okay.
Sheboygan, and one of the things they had before we closed was they had to fix the main water valve. And the plumber had to bring it all up to code, which meant putting it out to the curb stop. They had to change it all.
yeah, probably because they had it could have been a leaking,
brought it to
it
code.
could have been a leaking water service, right? So,
Right.
so when you replace it, you bring it up to current construction standards, correct?
Correct.
So, just like if you build if the city builds a new structure, you know, it's supposed to be built
Up
according to
code.
ADA
What I'm
and
talking
building
about
code.
is because it wasn't code,
The valve you're
Oh,
talking
sure.
about.
because a licensed plumber worked on it, they had to bring it up to code all the way out to the curb.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's telling you what to do, but that's what you do. I mean, you bring it up to code.
correct.
you're
If you
touching
have
it,
to replace it.
Change it.
You have to change it,
Code.
right?
If you don't touch it, though, you're not being told that you have to, right?
Right, but if you wanna fix it, if you wanna have a licensed plumber fix it, it has to be done by code.
Correct.
And that's, I guess I see that as being told what to do, but on the other hand, that's a good thing, cause it was a health hazard.
Okay, I'm gonna restrict it to persons who have commented so far, if I may, and then get a vote on it, so we, and I appreciate your comments unless, but Alder Slotchek.
I guess I'd just like to make a comment about Alderman Hildebrand's comment about private property and not telling people what to do on their private property. This is a health concern issue with national exposure. But the government tells everyone they have to wear a seatbelt in their privately owned car. I'd just like to make that comment that we do have the government telling people what to do with their privately owned things. And considering the exposure that lead service has garnered here in this country in the last 4 or 5 years, I think that it is something that the government, which we are, has a responsibility to help those people who have issues with their water service, that we should do that. I think that we also should be able to try and find ways to help those people who may be economically disadvantaged when they own their house and so on and so forth, to see if we could do something, I don't know, $1,000, half, at a certain income level, somewhat like the CDBG grants and so forth, but I think even be a little more lenient on who would qualify for that.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe stop the discussion at this point, but you would potentially propose amendment.
So
Pocket.
procedure,
wanna-
that would have to be seconded?
It had to
or
be
it has
seconded, so, and did you really did you actually propose one, or did you, you
No,
know,
I
state one?
am
That's what I wanna know.
proposing
Okay.
that, you know, that there'd be a personal contact to the landowner. Maybe in some cases it have to be by phone if they're an absentee landowner, but that they need to be informed, and we have to know that they're informed, not that they just receive something in the mail and like everything else that comes with a bill, it gets thrown out. You know, we have to hear their voice say, yes, we know what our options are.
Okay,
So that's my amendment.
is there?
I'll second that.
Then second, moved in second, to add to the amendment. Sabrina, or City Clerk, would you repeat back what you
Understand?
understand is the
Yes, so
amendment?
motion made by
Amendment.
Alder Nelson, seconded by Sedlacek to amend item 6A to include the owner of the properties be personally notified, and that the city knows that they were informed either by phone or by knocking at the door, being personally informed.
Okay, it's been moved in second. It can be discussed, but that's what we're discussing. We're not discussing the other part, we're discussing the phone call aspect of it now. So that's what's on the floor to discuss right now. So is there any discussion on Alder Nelson's amendment? I will discuss because I can. I'm gonna vote against it only for the, I think it's a great idea, but I'm not in favor of this amendment at all, so I'll be voting no all the way down the line, so that's where my no comes on it. I like the aspect of informing people, but, so, is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, we have a roll call on amendment, please.
Roll call on the amendment, Hanson,
No.
Bernsler,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Gilson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Odekirk,
Yes.
and Hildebrand.
Yes.
Now we have on the floor, I love parliamentary procedure, now we have on the floor to be voted on the amended resolution number 23, which states that we're gonna adapt the RFL as stated in here, that it will not be mandated. It will be voluntary, and then that it will be each person on that street, on that project will be personally called. Is that okay? Is there any discussion on the amended motion?
The overall motion now with the.
It's amended motion, right? Okay. If not, let's take roll call.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Bernsler,
Yes.
Odekirk,
Yes.
Gilson,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Hanson.
No. Okay, it passes by a large majority, so what'll be, will be adapted on the 27th as of today. It'll be adopted as amended. Okay? Perfect, I guess, no. Next, we go on to new business and public library chimney repairs. Administrator Yurgis, would you address that, please?
Yeah, you have a memo in front of you. Basically, and there should be, did everyone get some pictures in the packet? Hopefully they were colored. I guess that chimney is starting to fall apart. The library board would like to kind of keep the original look of the library and is requesting funds to repair the chimney. Basically, it would be taken apart and rebuilt. And that way it keeps the way it looked like when it was built in 1915. And I guess there's three different options: do nothing at this time. Number two, authorize the use of budgeted contingency for the repair. Or three, direct that the project be included in the 2020 budget. The fireplace is not being used. I understand that they might put electrical inserts at some point in it to be used. But they would like to keep the original look of the chimney.
Okay, is there a motion to address this issue?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the work to be done by Ken Clemmy Masonry for $4,157, and the funds to come from 2019 contingency dollars.
That's Alder Solachik. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Wilson?
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Alder Solachik?
Having been on the library board, I know that this topic came up, and so the board itself, they really feel like they want to keep the building to look the way it looks, even though the chimney itself is, they don't use the fireplace at this time, but it's just a matter of keeping that building structurally and aesthetically as it was when it was built over 100 years ago.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call. It's a monetary motion.
Gilson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Odekirk,
Yes.
Hildebrand,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Birnsler,
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Item passes. Next, we have on the agenda to adjourn. There's a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Alder Nelson.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion, or meeting